Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome everyone. It is so beautiful that you are here. And from the depths of my heart or our hearts, we want to thank you that you are here. And it's such a pleasure to have Jon Kabat-Zinn here with us. Jon, thank you so much for joining and for being here with us today.
Of course.
Yeah, there is.
I'm just gazing at all the people on my screen.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's really, again, we don't meet that often as community in this way, but I know you're out there 24/7, and it's really marvelous when Perry and Tomas bring us together in this way, in this totally crazy time. So hi, everybody. I see people that I'm not going to name, but have very, very old karma with in such beautiful ways, and just the entire gamut from, as we might say, then to now.
Yeah, we are going through very difficult and heartbreaking, challenging, saddening times. Millions of people are displaced and traumatized. So many people are losing their lives and their loved ones. And it's causing so much helplessness, feelings of sadness, grief, helplessness. And there is a verse, a Buddhist verse that is recited also in the Zen tradition. I would love to share it here with you. All my ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. These words so profoundly point to that we all have the potential to harm within us. And at the same time, we all have the capacity to practice wisdom and to be beneficial and to be healing. It is so important to fall awake over and over again so that we can take wise actions for alleviating suffering all over the world. Yeah, so the question is how to be with all these feelings we are confronted with, and practice wisdom within all the tragedies and the storms of human condition. And with that, I pass it on to you, Jon.
Thank you, Perry. And let's just linger in what Perry expressed and is pointing to and intuiting in all our hearts. So we're all gathered together in this one moment from around the world. I see people from around the world. And we're also gathering our own energies to take our seat. Just taking our seat is a gathering of certain kind of energies. And to me, it's also a statement or an affirmation of some kind that all is not lost, even in the depths of the darkness or the shadow or whatever metaphor you want to use for all the harm and senseless harm and suffering. And all the feelings of being inadequate in the face of that, and in some sense, not knowing what to do or how to be, that would rise to the occasion or the calling. Let's just sit with that not knowing and not beat ourselves up about it. Just for now, write yourself a restraining order that, you don't need to criticize yourself for the next hour and a half for what you're not doing, for what you're not feeling, for what you're feeling. But just for this hour and a half, let yourself be enough as you are. And in a space of not knowing what is coming or what might be possible from you or me or us, and bathing in that not knowing, which we can call wakefulness, or which we could call silence, which we have many ways of expressing. We could call it mindfulness. We could call it heartfulness. You could call it taking up residency in the only moment any of us ever have. So dropping in on this only moment, the only moment we ever have, and the only moment we ever will have. So it's very pregnant with potential, with possibility. As always, with this moment of now, with falling awake on purpose, even in the face of our own dismay and sense of being inadequate or pulled apart. For now, dropping underneath all talk, all language, all naming, all thought, all emotional turmoil, and taking refuge in this in-breath, in its miraculous purity. And in the purification and renewal of the out-breath, this out-breath. And for now, just for now, as always, no place to go, nothing to do, and no special something to attain or acquire or get done. Even in the face of everything that needs doing, just for now. In the refuge, finding a degree of clarity and equanimity, if there is any here. And whether there is or isn't, the default mode is always the same, resting in awareness, coming back to awareness, inhabiting wakefulness, fully embodied in this moment, in this breath, in this sitting here, in this being human. So for some moments as we continue to rest in awareness, but if your eyes have been closed, then inviting them to open whenever you feel like it, but maintaining that thread of moment to moment embodied wakefulness. I'd like to invite us to just scan through the 11 pages on my computer of thumbnails, slowly, mindfully, and just drinking in how alone we're not, how much a part of some larger phenomenon that none of us really understand we are, just by virtue of having shown up in this moment, whatever time zone you're in, and whatever your circumstances. And just drinking in the faces of everybody. I'm guessing none of us know more than 2 or 3% of who's on our screens. And I mean that just in terms of recognizing them. But there's something about us all showing up for this that is remarkable in ways that are hard to put into words. So let's just drink that in the beauty of every single face or couple of faces showing up on our screens. And many of you will have relationships with many of the other people on these screens. And we can marvel at it as itself a very positive phenomenon in the world at this moment. Because it allows us to be together and practice together and inquire together and listen deeply together to each other in ways that ordinarily would just be out of the question. There's 14 pages now of people on my screen. Don't be in a hurry. This is part of the love. I mean, if this is the map of love, we're mapping. Don't forget, the map is just an exterior manifestation. The real map is in here. And what's being mapped is right here and right here. So this is not an exercise to get through, but a meditation practice to marvel inside of. Marvel inside of. And I know each one of us is like, I'm guessing, torn apart in a certain way. With maybe feelings, I know I am, with feelings of inadequacy. With not knowing. How to meet this moment in a way that would actually be of maximal use, or at least some use. I guess it doesn't have to be maximal, and it may not be able to be maximal. And that will be one of the elements that we'll be inquiring into. Is like, what are we called to? And what's the scale of it? And how does it fit in with humanity and our individual lives and where we find ourselves at whatever stage we're at in our individual lives, and whatever the level of disruption. I'm guessing that not many of the people here today are actually present moment refugees. Maybe some of you are. And if you are, I want to extend an explicit welcome and an incredible bow of welcome for everything that is being experienced and the suffering, the rending. And if you're not a refugee, then, the sort of energies of what would be adequate for this moment. How can I help? What can I do in the face of the enormity of the suffering? And also the potential to delude ourselves or get self-righteous or make a big story out of who's to blame, who are the heroes, who are the villains. And we know, I'm sure all of you know that we have to be really careful when we start to concoct stories, if you are aware of that English verb, to fabricate a story of the heroes and the villains. Even though we have enormous amount of reason to fall into that, it could ultimately be diluted too in terms of this one planet we live on, and the fact that to a large degree what's going on in Ukraine, although at a level of just unspeakable violence and murderous destruction and eradicating the disrespect for life and limb. It's going on a lot of different places besides Ukraine in one way or another. And we don't necessarily pay all that much attention to it. Maybe harder to identify with people who aren't in Europe, or whose skin color is different, or whose religions are different, or whatever the sort of factors are that go into creating the story of how inhumane this is. But we don't necessarily remember that for all of the inhumanity that's happening in so many different places in the world. That is also unspeakable, but even if you read about it in the newspaper, you tend to move on to something a little bit lighter. I'm noticing all this in myself. I'm not sort of putting this out in some sense to kind of create some kind of, coordinate system for understanding this, but just in a kind of attempt to remind myself of what I know I don't know when I feel myself collapsing into self-righteousness or ussing and theming. And then, in some sense, certain forms of violence being okay because they are putting down other forms of violence, maybe. These are human conundra that have been going on since the dawn of what we call civilization. So the question is, what would be, how would we map love onto this? This is called the map of love. What is the calling of compassion and of wisdom, which are not separate in this particular moment, so that we don't lose ourselves in some degree of self-righteousness and stories that may be true to a degree, but they're not true enough or big enough to hold the whole. And then the individual koans is what am I called to do? If I'm called to do anything out of being, doing, with awareness, with compassion, with loving kindness. Every single one of us might be called to something slightly different, but we are all part of a particular kind of wave. And we even wouldn't have been here except for the pandemic. And then the pandemic occasioned our gathering for those 3 months back in 2020, for those of you who go back that far. And then this community forming out of that that's been going now for almost 3 years. It's really beautiful, and there's a certain way in which I think we need to help each other to not lose heart, to be able to still taste the beauty. Thich Nhat Hanh, I was thinking about the Vietnam War because, America did in Vietnam to a large degree. Maybe some particulars are different, but if you lived on the ground and you were experiencing years and years of bombing from 5-6 miles up from B-52s, it didn't matter whether it's Russian artillery or American bombs to the people down below, or whether you were on the left or whether you had a different political persuasion. The bombs don't differentiate. Made in USA, those bombs. And we've seen that happen a lot in Iraq and in Afghanistan. The story is that we're the saviors. We know what's best for everybody else. We're standing up against oppression. We carry our own oppression, and America's feeling it. All you need to do is watch what's going on with guns in the United States. School children. In their last week of school, last few days of school. Families. So it's the full catastrophe of the human condition is really the full catastrophe, and how we are going to be in wise relationship to my mind, it's going to make all the difference between whether we just keep doing this with bigger and better and smarter weapons, or whether we realize that as a species, we've got to heal. We have got to wake up. Because war is terror for whoever's experiencing it, the B-52s or Russian artillery, or war is terror. And every generation, the weapons get more terrifying. We're so clever. I've said it many times in this community that it's like cancer. It's a cancer that or an autoimmune disease. We, our different parts of ourselves are going to war with each other. The lungs versus the liver, or the heart versus the bones, or whatever it is. It's like, wait a minute, we're all part of the same you, all part of the same person. Whether it's Ukraine or Russia, or North Vietnam or South Vietnam, or the Taliban, or, other factions in Afghanistan, or the Sunnis or the Shiites, or the Yemenis or the Saudis, or, just how, or the, just how in every country, Eritrea, Ethiopia, on and on and on and on. And it's like the diagnosis is cancer. We're the root cause. Is the human mind that doesn't know itself. Greed, hatred, delusion, always in this, wrapped up in a nice story that makes us justify our actions and be the good people, that we're saving the world. And the irony is that there's a way in which that's true, and there was a way in which it's not true enough. We've got to expand to a more or rotate to a more orthogonal, not knowing, but this is not right. This is not the prescription. And even if none of the wars were happening and all the terror and everything else, we have a war on our hands with the planet. And we've said many times, it's an all hands on deck moment, and there's only one spaceship Earth. But, if there's warfare going on the spaceship, that the crew is fighting with each other, I mean, how likely is it that the spaceship's going to wind up going where it needs to go, or having any life left on it? So we are the cells of the one body of the planet. And in the same way that 40 years of MBSR and MBCT and MBCP and all these other meditative contributions to medicine and healing and birthing and aging that have been so supported in the past 40 years by increasing levels of evidence that this is non-trivial, and that non-doing actually winds up having profound effects on the brain, on the epigenome, on all sorts of factors that actually extend health and make it more robust across the lifespan to whatever degree is possible, given all sorts of other complex factors, okay? So 40 years of that, of like, we've discovered something in medicine that was considered like lunatic fringe or heresy back in 1979. And that is that the mind could actually influence the body in a way that would bring things under greater regulation for the benefit of the whole. The word whole being connected to the word health or healthy, and for that matter, sacred or holy. And this was like considered to be lunatic fringe, new age bullshit. And now it's like, so taken for granted, it's hardly recognized as revolutionary in 40 years. And there's huge amount of research and a huge amount of funding to keep studying this, because we've barely scratched the surface. But there's a kind of allegorical or metaphorical connection between our own individual health. We can't be healthy in an unhealthy world. Just in terms of pollution, we can't be healthy, right? If you're breathing in all sorts of toxins you don't know about, or they're in your water supply, or they're in the food, in the ground. And how many toxins do you think are going into the ground, into those fields that feed an enormous amount of the earth in Ukraine from all those missiles and artillery shells, and the smoke going into the air? I mean, they're it's a kind of object lesson in pollution, not just destruction, but pollution of the actual ground of life, the ground of being. And so awareness has to be able to hold all of that with clarity, wisdom, and with compassion. And in a certain way, now take what we've learned about medicine of the individual human in the past 40 years and extend it to medicine for the planet, which we've already given a disease to, a fever that is, by all accounts, on the verge of kind of triggering a chaotic runaway phenomenon that the atmosphere has now more CO2, you probably saw this in the news just last week, than in the past 400 million years, I think was the figure, okay? I mean, the Earth itself will still revolve around the sun. It's been doing this for like, 4.5 billion years or something like that. And life has been on the planet for maybe 3 billion years. And it took inorganic matter a very long time to figure out how to trap energy from the sun to actually make more complex things like amoeba or, paramecia or bacteria or whatever. That's all like the genius of the universe given enough time. But, billions of years is a very long time. And we don't have billions of years in front of us unless we wake up, because we're kind of like, as I said, the autocatalytic disease of planet Earth. And astronomers talk about sort of Venus being a kind of red planet, and we're a blue planet. Venus is an oven, 900 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. We're capable of having sort of runaway global warming trigger events that would heat the atmosphere to a place that even if humans survive, the competition for resources will be such that the haves will have everything and the have-nots, which are 99% of the rest of us, will have nothing. And so what happens in one, classroom or one school in Uvalde, Texas, in another way, that level of violence, that level of suffering, that level of destruction, human destruction, it's in our future unless we understand what the forces are. And in the short period of time, they say the scientists say, to bring that under some degree of regulation, and which will require certainly all of us, all hands on deck. So this is a meditative moment. I mean, what else do we know that is anywhere near capable of dealing with how easily we fall into liking and disliking them and us, and the kinds of injustice, economic, racial, everything else that arises from that? This is a moment where we need medicine for the body, politic for the body of the planet. And if there was something more powerful than what we mean when we say mindfulness, and what we mean in terms of both practice and inaction in the world, living the practice in the complex, ugly, difficult, messy, cantankerous, violent world that we inhabit, I would be advocating that and trying my best to, align myself with what needed to be learned and then brought out in that way. But in my, now 78 years, I haven't come close to finding anything anywhere near as powerful as what we're calling mindfulness, which is not separate from human kindness, from compassion, from clarity, from embodied wakefulness, and living that into inaction, sometimes called, but, so in a certain way, everything is a political act. And that's kind of challenge that I think we're all facing. And like, so we need as much imagination and creativity as we can draw on. And my source of imagination and creativity, I'll tell you, is other people, just watching what other people are doing and capable of, and how amazingly diverse the creativity is among us humans. I mean, it's just beautiful to behold. And also this, it looks idiotic, imbecilic. What are you doing? The world's on fire. Sansanim, my Korean Zen teacher, used to give us a koan. The world is on fire. What can you do? That was the koan. And if you came to him with blah, 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 you'd get whacked over the head, or the metaphorical equivalent of whacked over the head, because he wasn't looking for a philosophical or a thought-based solution. The world's on fire. What can you do? So we have that koan now. I mean, he's long dead, but all of a sudden that koan seems much more alive than it was when he gave it to us. The world's on fire. What can we do? Now, a lot of us are already doing all sorts of incredibly beautiful healing work in the world. And guess what? We're called to do more because the suffering is like unthinkable, taken to another level, and also inviting us to expand our repertoire of who we think is worthy of our help and who we don't even know might need our help because they're far away, but that we can't relate to their culture. As His Holiness likes to say, the Dalai Lama, he says, you know, everybody was once a baby, and the instinct, a mother's instinct to nurse the baby as soon as the baby's born, that's compassion. That's human kindness. We take care of what can't take care of itself. If we actually care about life, the earth will take care of itself. It'll still go around the sun. If it's 900 degrees, we won't be here. But you know how much the earth will care whether human beings are here on the planet or not? Whether the oceans have any life in them or not? In the sort of big sweep of the universe, our galaxy is insignificant, never mind our solar system. I mean, this is a big space that we're in, and we have this amazing karmic opportunity to actually investigate the nature of reality and where we come from, and how chlorophyll figured out with billions of years how to capture sunlight, and then hemoglobin, which looks a lot like the chlorophyll molecule, figured out that that same porphyrin ring structure that the plants have could be used in our blood to actually capture oxygen and bring it around to all the trillions of cells that are starving for oxygen and that need us to breathe every moment, in or out. And then we're so incredibly smart that we can not only develop weapons that can, kill people, but we can also build, telescopes that we put out past the orbit of the moon, like this new James Webb telescope, and unfurl its like incredibly sophisticated mirrors. One thing out of a 50 billion things goes wrong, the whole thing, which costs billions of dollars, would be kaput. But it worked. And now they can look back in space, out in space, which means back in time to the very beginning. We're talking 3.8 billion years. We can't. Okay, the Earth's only been around for maybe 4 billion years, and the sun, because they emerged together. So this is our responsibility. We're here. What's the curriculum for us in this insignificant part of this unimaginably big universe? And whether this experiment of, life can move in the direction of finally finding an equilibrium that we could call well-being, health, healthy. And that would mean all the cells of the body politic of the planet healthy, okay? Not just the wealth concentrated to an unimaginable degree in the smallest number of hands. And they're pointing at and confiscating the yachts and other stuff from the oligarchs. But, there are all sorts of American oligarchs too. And if the story was changed just slightly, why should they have all of that and the blood supply to, the people who are actually bringing you your stuff during COVID, are dying at 3 times the rate of anybody else and can't make a living. And they have children too. And those children also have hearts that beat in their chests and want a future. So it's like there's a lot to do. I mean, and I think we need to sort of really listen to people like Thomas Piketty and economists who are saying like, okay, now in terms of the evolutionary arc of things, capitalism is over. I mean, we've got to find another way because capitalism concentrates the wealth so much and actually manufactures the arms in such effective ways that the arms manufacturers, they're not crying over how their weapons are being used, because as soon as whatever wars are going on right now, including are over, they'll resupply, right? Do you know how much money that's gonna? So this is like, there's something wrong with this picture. And we'll give all those weapons of war to 18-year-olds who, a questionable relationship to their own lives and well-being, and it's, and it's okay if they just go in and kill people at random, because that's just part of the price of capitalism. The price is too high. I mean, this is like a disease. And so we need to treat it the way medicine would treat any disease. We need to understand the root cause. These are the 4 noble truths of Buddhism, by the way. That, the root cause is, sort of greed, to just put it in one word. It's greed on the part of people. Like, I want the biggest yacht in the world, or I want the most power, or there's the problem. And maybe that I was once a baby, and God knows how that baby was welcomed into the world. God knows how that baby was held, and why some people desperately need to be violent to feel good at the expense of other people. We don't know these things, but this is like the medicine of the world now, that we have to inquire in this way. And then if it's capitalism or it's other aspects of life, the laws that protect people and that protect women and, women's health, and we need to wake up to the lawfulness of the universe, because if not, as I said, the universe won't care that much. But if we're sentient beings, we should care for our children and our children's lives and our children's lives, and on and on and on, and the trees, because no trees, no grandchildren. It's all interconnected. And, it needs all of us. I mean, I think I'm not saying anything that all of us don't already know. I mean, that we each need to kind of probe what we're called to do on this planet now, not 6 months from ago, but now, knowing what we know, being who we are, and doing what we can. And then not beating ourselves up for not doing what we can't. Okay. This is a real meditation practice, and to not be so impatient that we just beat ourselves up anyway because we have to act now. Acting out of wrong intention or confusion is not wisdom. And when we meditate together, we're already, in some sense, embodying we're embodying healing. And even if we don't do anything more, but we just intend to not be part of the violence. And then to whatever degree we can reach out and help with the refugees from Ukraine, with everything that's going on, in whatever ways we can. So let's take a few moments and just, I've said a lot. I wasn't planning to say any of this. I, of course, never know what I'm going to say. But I do feel a real resonance with the invitation from Perry to sort of meet in this moment, in this way. And I know many of you meet more frequently on the map of love. So this is, in a sense, a kind of affirmation of the power of love. An affirmation of the love that I mean is not different from clear seeing. It's not different from selflessness, or seeing into the nature of self and understanding something about the way we reify an identity that's way too small for who we are. And yet be very careful not to go into delusion at the other end and think you're going to be like the coming of Jesus Christ or the new savior of the planet, you know, from mindfulness, with mindfulness flags waving or compassion flags waving or anything else. It's like, please, I hope we're not going to be creating that kind of delusion. We need something fresh, something new, something maybe that is very old, but also very, very new, because, you know, the Dharma is alive. It's not in a museum. And really it's us. No separation, no boundary, no exclusion, and non-harming. The first foundation, okay? First, do no harm. The first foundation, the Hippocratic Oath in medicine. So now we need a Hippocratic Oath for education, for parenting, for the planet, for the United Nations, or whatever will succeed the United Nations, or, you know, first do no harm. Okay. And then we need to build laws, a dharma. Dharma means lawfulness. Laws that prevent certain kinds of delusion from actually amplifying violence. Whether it's economic violence, whether it's social violence, whether it's racial violence, or whether it's war-based violence. So what comes to mind at this moment is those lines from Naomi Shihab Nye's poem, Naomi Shihab Nye being a Palestinian American. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things, feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. We're at the point of losing everything. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all my money or resources, all this must go, so you know how desolate the regions how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. how you ride and ride thinking the bus will never stop, the passengers eating chicken and maize will stare out the window forever. Before you know what kindness really is, you must travel where the campesino lies dead by the side of the road. You must see that he too was somebody who traveled through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. We are bathing in that kind of dukkha, sorrow. You must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow, which we're all doing, to your breath. You must wake up with sorrow till your breath and all sorrows come together and you see the size of the cloth. I'm ad-libbing a little bit. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that raises its head that sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread, daily life. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world and says, it is I you have been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. I think we can have some kind of global movement for kindness, just like Greta Thunberg, has developed a global movement of young people because the older people are stealing the future for all generations to come. And, and have it be based on mindfulness, compassion, kindness, embodied stability and taking a stand. Sometimes by taking a seat. So we'll see how things unfold. I don't have any magical solutions to propose. I hope I don't, because that would be seriously deluded. But I do think that we have just unbelievable potential as humans to wake up. And that really, you might say, is the universe's karmic assignment to us. Okay, we gave you this planet and it's at the nice Goldilocks distance from the sun, not too hot, not too cold. We gave you 4 or 5 billion years to kind of reach this point where you're clever enough to develop nuclear weapons and guided missiles and all of that stuff, and also some semblance of civilization. Okay, now what? That's the human koan. Now what? And I must say, we are up for it. And this has been going on forever. The violence, the injustice, the kings and queens and the serfs and the peasants and the, sort of poverty and it's just been endless. And the injustice in the Industrial Revolution and the sort of rise of capitalism and the pollution of the planet. It's only the past couple of 100 years. But, we haven't figured out what our karmic assignment is and then solve the koan of we can do this. We can do this. So I'm going to stop here, except to encourage you to keep on keeping on. And I mean, these are days in which it's more important to get your ass on the cushion, if you don't mind my saying it that way. I mean, formally, and keeping it there maybe a little longer than you feel like. But yet remembering that the real meditation practice is life itself in every single moment. And I know I'm preaching to the choir and you all know all of this, but let's just affirm perhaps that in our not knowing, our connecting in this way is an incredibly powerful signature of what might be coming as we grow into this koan and what's called for now while we're still breathing. So I think at this point, I see one person with a hand up, and let me just invite you to raise your hands if you want to make a comment. It's not so much about questions to Jon, but if you want to say something, and then again, I just gave an extremely long speech that I could call a guided meditation. I hope it was. But because of we've only got 25 minutes, don't imitate me and give another long speech. But if you could like thread the needle of what really impels you to raise your hand, let's go for that. And Perry and Tomas, do you want to regulate that for us?
Yes, we can do that. Just as we begin with the Q&A or the dialogue sessions, I just want to remind everybody that we are recording this session, and that when you are talking, that this will be recorded and published on our YouTube channel.
Okay, so you'll have to unmute. Jackie, if you're first.
Yes. Just wait a second.
And say where you're from when you do get to talk, just so we know.
Jackie?
Yes.
Can
Do you have me?
Again?
Okay. So I tried to contact Jon all week since last Sunday to wish him happy birthday. So I just hope it's not inappropriate now.
There's an echo on your line. You've got two mics open.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me block this.
Because I can't understand the thing you're saying.
Okay. All right. I don't know how to do this. Okay. All right. Okay. Is that better?
Much better. Much better.
Thank you.
I admire your technical savvy.
I don't have it.
Well, you did it.
So, yeah, okay, good. So last Sunday I tried contacting you somehow to wish you happy birthday. I was not successful, so I am taking this opportunity to wish you happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And thank you, Jon, for being here for us. We so desperately need this getting together. So blessings to you and much thankfulness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you. So then next one, maybe Mary Beth.
And again, I encourage you to say where you're calling from, just so that we have a sense of it.
Burbank, California. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Perry. Thank you, Thomas. I have been so moved in my life from the second day of my lockdown in New York City, listening to you in the original 13 weeks, that those messages were so powerful, and the group was so powerful that just totally life-changing, and I thank you for that. The things that really have stuck with me are, when you say, like, what can you do? What can I do? And to remember that the world needs all its flowers. The third one that I really go to every day is to remember that if I'm breathing, there's more right with me than wrong with me. And the same is true for this precious planet. There's more right with it than wrong with it in my heart. And the hardest challenge that I've had, that I've over these last 2.5 years, is to realize that when I do feel overwhelmed, or when I don't feel overwhelmed, that I can always go right here and heal here. That to heal my own self always seemed selfish. to put myself first always seemed against the rules, against everything I was raised to do. And it's become enormously clear that it's like the wave and the drop, you know, the whole quantum physics, that the way to heal the planet is if each of us heals in ourselves, we will heal as a group that way. And so it's just been so hard to do that. I couldn't believe it could be this hard to put myself first and to really truly learn to love myself, to have compassion. And yet the more I'm starting to actually do that, I really am starting to feel all the good stuff too, the joy in each person that I get to meet and interact with on the smallest of scales and the bigger scales, and learning to know about the money, you know, where does the money go from? Where does it come from? Who gets it? Like that each of us has that power as well. Like in every, not just the money, but all the resources, anything you touch and use makes a difference. We're not insignificant. It's the individual that is the group. And, you know, like everybody has been saying, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh was one to say that the next Messiah is a community. And this community has healed me so much. And I took a trip yesterday. I went and met two of the people that I've been in Zoom calls with for 2 years. I went on from the 13 weeks to another program that then took me to another program. And at first I thought it's crazy. I'm getting on a train, I'm spending all this money, I'm going. But the three of us, we met in person after 2 years, and it was really, really beautiful. Just incredibly, as if we sat like we had known each other our whole lives. And I got back on the little Amtrak and rode back home. And thank you everyone. And we really all do matter. And anytime I'm lost, I can just come back here and feel all of you and love you and know you love me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Noncia.
Thank you. Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Perry and Thomas and everybody. What's in my heart and maybe a lot in my mind at the moment is I really like the analogy that you, Jon, share with us in terms of we being single cells of the whole world versus what has been done with mindfulness 40 years back. And I was wondering whether there are any learnings, and I'm asking this to you because you've been pioneering it, that we can reapply in the healing process now. And I know you touch on looking into the root causes of greed, on being creative and use our imagination. What else?
I don't know, you know, it's a hard question from the scientific point of view because all of the science is really in its infancy. And so we don't really understand the science of the kind of the sociology of groups when it comes to like what happens in the brain or what happens in the sort of physiology of people when they become, have a certain view. I mean, there are studies of, you know, sort of conservatives or Democrats versus Republicans, you know, brain studies and stuff like that. And they have very, very different brains and also different views about risk and what is trustworthy and so forth. So, but I think that it's really important not to objectify people as Republicans or Democrats or having this particular brain function or that particular brain function, because that's really a dehumanizing of the other. So we need to find, I think, ways that science hasn't really contributed to yet, as far as I know, very far, to how we can all, in some sense, come to some kind of agreement that maximizes well-being and minimizes harm, and then create rules that actually reinforce the agreements, so that if harm is created, there's a cost to that, and you're basically tilting things in the direction of maximizing well-being, minimizing. That's what the law is all about. But the laws of my country, at least, and it's probably true for the global or international community, they really have not taken on the perspective of the planet as an important participant in the process. And so we need to sort of represent the interests of the planet and of the 7 billion people on the planet, because usually it's just the powerful that write the laws, and it's always in support of their interests. And so it's, in a certain way, it's like playing with a stacked deck in Las Vegas. You're going to lose all the time. The house always wins, as they say. So that would be the orthogonal rotation in not only a consciousness, but in enacting new ways of agreeing how to minimally support life for all the cells of the one body politic of the planet. And I don't know how to do that. I think that's a collective inquiry that we all need to be engaged in, but very, very seriously, because there's a certain degree of urgency to it.
Thank you, Jon. Maybe I just add, I didn't mention, I'm based in Munich, Germany. I'm Italian of origin.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grüß Gott.
Grüß Gott.
Or tschüss.
Thank you, Nuncia. Bridget.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much, Jon, for this wonderful chance to come together. Thank you, Thomas and Perry. My kind of reflection is around the, well, first of all, I want to say I was taking part in a small Christian group the other night, and the theme was community. And we were asked to share what was one of our deepest experiences of community in a spirit-focused setting, community. And I brought this, the 13-week retreat was my example. That was a much deeper sense of community than I've ever felt in a church. And the conditions for it being the unconditional acceptance of one another, and it being rooted in love, and that connection to source, helping us to then go out into the world with rightful action, with ethical action. So thank you so much for making all of this possible, and for us to really connect to ourselves and then to one another. And what I wanted to comment on was the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. They're quoting in their report the the mindfulness initiative, the report by the mindfulness group.
Yes, in England, in the UK, yeah.
To say that rather than a technological answer to climate change, one of the key ingredients is precisely this.
I didn't know that. So the ICCP is quoting the mindfulness initiative. That's a very good sign.
IPCC, saying
IPCC, yeah.
Yeah, that this is what is needed. Is we've become separated from ourselves, from each other, from nature, and so what we need is connection.
Yeah,
it's an inner solution that is required, just as much as the physical lowering of the emissions because it's not just a kind of physical lowering of emissions, is it? It's about changing the system. It's about changing the paradigm. The drive to consume more and more coming from a displaced need. Our needs are to connect with one another. What are the real needs that need to be met? And through this is how we can find it, what we truly yearn for.
Well, my hope is that, that didn't come about by accident. That came about from a lot of people working behind the scenes for a very long time, and quite improbably, that mindfulness, it was, seen as kind of like the far side of the lunatic fringe, and now it's in the UK Parliament, and it has a certain gravitas that's moving into the IPCC. That's wonderful to know. I didn't actually know that, but thank you so much for sharing that with us, and for it's kind of gives a certain enthusiastic kind of reminder that we can do this. And just because the stakes are very high, and it seems like the hill is also very hard to climb, steep climb, we are capable of that. So thank you for letting us know that, and in this community.
Thank you for helping.
Nice to see you both sitting there. You just look so at home.
And there's the cat too.
Yes, of course. The cat is the key player in all of this.
Yeah, thank you. And then Charbel, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Barry and Thomas, for all you do and for your kindness on the WhatsApp group and here. Thank you so much, Jon, for your generosity, embodying this attitudinal foundation generosity. Every time I attend a session, and thank you for the entire community present here as well. Every time I attend a session and Jon keeps saying, we can do it, I get inspired to just say this little thought that I've had for so many years. And now being a mindfulness instructor here in Beirut, Lebanon, and in the region, I just not only imagine, I know we don't like to imagine in mindfulness, but really act like an epicenter of inspiration. And every single person we can inspire around us will play as a ripple. And all the ripples of 7 billion human beings on Earth will probably, hopefully, make a change and make a difference. We are 7 billion epicenters on this Earth, and every seed we plant in our hearts and in each other's hearts, it's up to us how we water it. So inspiration from all of you, and especially this person I love to call the father of mindfulness, Jon. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Shabai. And it's just wonderful to, hear from you and where you're from and the cultural, sort of challenges of your world within the one larger world. Yeah, you're proof that we can do this. And so thank you profoundly for that. This is a kind of really example of how important it is to think locally and at the same time act globally, and then the reverse, think globally but act locally, so that the both are incredibly important. And I'm just honored to be a small part of that. It's we're all in this together,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charbel. And now, Ezra.
Good evening from Turkey, Istanbul, the land of Rumi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it is.
Konya is a city in Turkey, and that's where Rumi, situated was. And he was situated in Turkey. While I was listening to you, I'm listening to you from different dimensions. Like currently, I'm going through my MBSR teacher training program. So after 40 years, all those teachers out there trying to spread this love, spread compassion, spread kindness to the world. I want to say, when you mentioned, Jon, thank you so much for your generosity. I want to say that too. I'm trembling right now. It's so hard to find the right words to say. But I want to say, when you mentioned everyone on Zoom, I also glanced at everyone's faces, and you said the sentence, look at everyone and everyone is torn apart in some way. And it touched my heart. It really touched my heart because I could sense everyone in here, and I know what's going on in me also. I want to ask this question. The truths that you mentioned about humanity and kindness and compassion. So what's stopping humanity to come together, to remember the truths of humanity? It's been out there for a long, very long time. Rumi, Buddha, religions, all the prophets, everyone has been saying the same thing. So what's stopping us?
If you want to drill right down to the essence, it's mistaking the nature of self. And when we reify a me, that is the center of the universe, then my interests become primary. And so if I am threatened, I will do everything in my power to protect myself and my interests, thinking that they're most important, but that's not who I really am. I'm not my possessions, or I'm not my narrative about myself. And in fact, that's why I brought up the mother and the child, because any mother knows, like you'd give your life in an instant for your child. It's like instinctual. It's just part of your true nature. And we all have that as well. And so it's a very profound question why, with all of the various teachers that have been visiting the planet for so long, and always with one message, wake up. But then that message gets divided between the people who love the message and the people who hear some other message or following some other teaching. And then they have to go to war because they are the infidels and we are the one true understanding. And so there's a piece missing. And all true people of peace know this, no matter what the tradition or no matter what the piece missing is that we have not found a way to live with a true understanding of what it means to be human. And so we create this self that's too small, a self-narrative, the story of me. And then, or the story of we, whether it's Turkey or whether it's Syria or whether it's this or that. And then we're in the small self-interest and lose the larger collective interest. And, you know, when we were fighting with swords and stuff like that, you know, it was bad enough. But now we're fighting with nuclear weapons. It's like, you know, and everything else, this is like no longer tolerable. And that's the dis-ease of the planet or our species. And, you know, we need Rumi now more than ever, you know, but, you know, but Rumi's message, it's not like one person. We don't need a savior anymore. I'm thinking like, it's not going to be like the coming of Jesus or the coming of Buddha or the coming of, you know, Muhammad or any other tradition. It has to be all of us taking responsibility and having it be many, many different voices, many, many different views, but one common agreement is like, we're much bigger than who we think we are, and our differences are nothing compared to how similar we are. And that we need to create laws to support that, even in people who don't see that as deeply as we might. And how to go there, how to thread that needle, it's non-trivial. It's non-trivial in your country. It's certainly non-trivial in my country. But that's the karmic assignment, so to speak, for the moment, if we care about future generations and the trees and the air and the water and the earth.
Thank you so much. And I promise you in front of everyone, I will do my best to continue spreading this word.
You are so sweet. Yeah. You don't need to promise me. I know, I can feel for all of us that we're all in this in a way that has integrity and that there's no one right way to do it, and that our minds will continue to grow and we will continue learning from each other. And I feel like everybody who's spoken just now, I feel like I'm bathing in your care, in your commitment, in your love, and in everybody else who's spoken. And I find that enormously uplifting, enormously uplifting. So thank you.
Thank you.
So as usual, we're running over. So I think we'll take, I can't pronounce, is it?
Hello.
What's your last, the last person there? Oh, there are two people there.
Yeah.
Let's go with the two people and then we'll stop, okay? If that's all right. I check in with you, Thomas, and Perry, do you want to keep going for a little bit or
Yes.
not? I can only go for a few more minutes, but.
That's fine. That's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. So whoever's up next.
Marilyn.
Marilyn, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Perry and Thomas, for hosting this again. I missed part of it because I was at a self-help group this morning and I was walking home listening to to Jon talking, and that was wonderful for me. I attended the sessions, I guess it's 2 years ago now. And through all of this time, there's been a lot going on in my personal life, but a lot more going on in the world. And what I learned in those 13 weeks, and what I am still learning, is that whatever is there for me to do, whatever I can do, is what is important to do. I have a tendency to be overwhelmed and to think that, oh, it's all too much for me. I can't do anything. But because of attending these sessions and other types of meditation and things like that over the years, I've come to a point in my life now where I just say yes when somebody asks me to do something. And, it keeps me very busy. I was diagnosed last year with lung cancer, and I went through surgery. And I had so many comments on how well I was handling it. I think that all comes through mindfulness, because my thought when I was diagnosed was, why not? Why not me? And this year I've also had some surgery on my feet, so walking is a little more difficult than it used to be. But again, if I'm able to, and I can, I'm going to continue. I'm a bit younger than Jon, not much. And I'm so grateful, Jon, that you're still willing to be here with us and to share your thoughts on these important things that are going on in the world right now, and to remind us that that we can only do what is in front of us to do every day and every minute. So thank you, and happy birthday, Jon. I know it's just, I don't know if it is today, but it's just past your birthday. If it isn't,
yeah. But the most important thing is that what you just said is that not only can you do what's yours to do, but that it matters. Yes. In ways that the mind may say are small, but they're not insignificant. And one thing also leads to another. So we should never be discouraged because we're not doing enough, but we should certainly keep asking ourselves whether there's something else that only you being you, or me being me, or we being we, can actually contribute that we're just not seeing yet. And if it's coming out of love, it doesn't even seem like work or a sacrifice to do that. But it seems like, in an all hands on deck moment, I mean, it's like the larger challenge that is just commonsensical.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much.
It's the next indicated thing. And thank you.
Exactly. Where were you calling from? Did you say?
From Edmonton. I didn't say from Alberta.
From Alberta, Canada. Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, good luck to you in all ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And then Gilata?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I first want to really send my gratitude to you, Jon, and Thomas and Perry for creating this atmosphere again. Jon, you created 2.5 years ago, the seeds of this mindfulness. I know it was like we knew about mindfulness, but it went all over the world. And I think, to my opinion, it did really create some changes. At least I can say for myself. And you just said what it means to be human being, that we are more than what we think we are. That's what's really important. And I think realizing the love, the potential for love, that if we could see that in ourselves, and our connection to all being, that's the solution for the world situation. And at the same time, I think because we all got stuck with some who are extremely irrational, who are extremely greedy, they are pulling, they're destroying this planet Earth. And I feel how important it is to, gosh, I have a hard time to say it, but I think it's really important if we could come together once a month to be reminded because of the urgency that I hear in your voice. And I really see it and feel it every day, how important people are perishing all over the world. And I think we can do something, but there is a need for this community to come together at least once a month. And so grateful if you be part of that community. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Where are you calling from?
I'm actually originally from Iran, but I am living in Los Angeles.
Okay, yeah, because I see it's daylight your time. So,
yes.
Well, listen, thank you, and I appreciate those sentiments. And although at the same time, I'm really aware of how important it is to not personalize this kind of unfolding. Or put it on any one person. But at the same time, I hear exactly what you're saying. And, I'm asking the same questions you are. And so to whatever degree makes sense, I mean, this community will keep flowering and I will keep participating in it one way or another.
Yes.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
It's coming straight through to me.
Thank you so very much. Yes, to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's just one person left. Jon, is that
okay?
Okay?
Of course.
Louisa.
Yeah.
Now you see there's another person now coming on. We're going to have to stop at Louisa just to say, I'm sorry.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, oui. Je suis de Genève, en Suisse. I'm from Geneva, in Switzerland. I just want to say that I'm practicing since few years. And more I practice, more I feel in my heart that it's all, mindfulness is all about love. It's a love affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I say that all the time. Even taking your seat.
Yeah.
When you sit down to meditate and you think, oh, I'm going to meditate or I should meditate or whatever, and you do it, you take your seat. That's a radical act of sanity and a radical act of love. Just to do that. To stop now for the world. For yourself too. Yeah, you're not separate.
And then for the others.
But for everybody, at that moment, you are just, your aspiration to wake up.
Yeah.
And to be fully who you already are, so you don't need to get anywhere.
Yeah.
That's a radical act of sanity, and it's an affirmation that you are basically love.
Right.
So that's what meditation is. Anything else is kind of like a kind of mental exercise, and always trying to get someplace else and be a better person. But you can't be a better person because there's no you to be better than. It's just trying to improve your self-story, which is a delusion. And awareness is already the antidote to that. If you inhabit awareness right in this moment, it doesn't matter how much the story is running because you know it's not you. It's just a thought stream or a fabrication, as they like to say. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bonsoir et merci.
Merci. Merci à vous, monsieur.
Okay. People have to stop raising their hands, but we'll take, is it Alia? Okay, unmute and this will be the last one.
Hi, John. I met you when the pandemic started, and I hadn't heard about you, but I believe that I was really privileged to have come on board with everybody. And you spoke right into my heart. I'm from Iran right now. I'm in Southern California, but I just returned from a trip from Iran. And since we are talking about how we can help, I just feel very responsible to bring awareness to what's going on in Iran and with the people in Iran, with over 40 years of sanctions. Yeah. And inflation is sky high. The prices are the same as they are in US, except from petroleum or gas. And incomes are very, very limited and small. And these people are so resilient and so adaptable and civilized. They are still civilized. I mean, I am amazed that, I mean, I've lived here for over 40 years, but I lose internet for 5 minutes and I'm panicking. And it's just, I'm really amazed that they have been surviving the difficulties for as long as they have. And we're still, I was born in Iran, we're still viewed as the villain. And for my life, I cannot understand what is it that we have done that we have been so demonized.
There are no villains, you know. There are
I know,
no villains.
but we are.
It's just ignorance.
We are. To the public, to the unawakened souls, which is the majority. I mean, don't look at the panel here. That's the exceptions.
No, of course. But you know, because we don't have a lot, we don't have a lot of time. I have to go to another event in a few minutes.
Right. I'm just wondering, what can we do to change this?
Keep being you. Keep bringing it up. I mean, you are.
Well, I had
example.
to finally.
You
it's
can't
hard
help
for
it.
me to talk.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad you got in. Okay, because you know, all human beings are the same. Okay.
That's right.
And then there's kind of like the geopolitics and the ussing and theming and identity of like, and Iranian culture is like just unbelievably, you know, beautiful. And you know, so every culture contributes to the larger, you know, sort of emergence of what's deepest and best and most human in us. And yet we're often ignorant of other cultures. We're mostly ignorant of our own cultures, even, and what their beauty is. And then you've got the leadership, which is very often driven by totally different concerns and can create levels of problem, either relating to other countries or to their own people in such a way that, you know, sort of, you know, suppressing certain kinds of attempts to experience whatever we mean by freedom, authentic, true freedom in a lot of different domains. Now, the question of like, what is authentic, true freedom in any country? You're going to get endless arguments. The democracies think they already have it, but you know, if you talk to, you know, Black people, they, you know, in the United States, I mean, you know, they are not exactly treated the way other people are treated. That there's like endemic, you know, sort of racism and even, you know, sort of all sorts of customs left over from hundreds of years of slavery and then Native American people. So there's no group on the planet that in some sense has really been fully, you know, recognized, except for, you know, sort of I won't even go into it, because like we were talking about capitalism and you're talking about imperialism and you're talking about what Europe did, for hundreds of years in terms of the slave trade and what they did in the Americas. I mean, it's like, it's just human nature, but it's not all of human nature. And now that we can send rockets off and photograph the earth and see, oh, it's not flat. And you don't fall off, but we're all on the same one planet. If we don't actually jump out of those kinds of power grabs and war-inducing using versus theming on every level, right down to the level of neighborhoods and societies where, you get violence going on between different groups of people, Shiites and Sunnis, they both worship Muhammad and, and kill each other, So it's like, this is the nature of the human mind when it doesn't know itself. But you are an example of the nature of the human mind when it begins to know itself, because you're saying there's some other way and we're not being recognized for who we are. So welcome to the club. And this is why we're doing what we're doing. And we have to also be, remember that no matter how important the outcome is, whatever outcome we idealize, the more we're attached to the outcome, the more blind we're going to become, even if it's a good outcome. So we have to operate in a way that is really non-dual, is free from the using and theming and even attachment to outcome, but we do it as if our lives depended on it, because they do in every way. So that's it for now, but I'm so glad you got to at least express yourself in this session. And you're muted, so you can't respond unless you unmute. But if you do respond very, very quickly, because I'm going to have to stop.
I appreciate it. I just needed to bring awareness. I felt that for millions of people in Iran, I had to bring a voice. And that's why I spoke.
And let me just say,
I
have very happy news that my first book, Full Catastrophe Living, has been translated into Farsi and will be coming out in Iran, which I'm very happy of.
Yes,
I'm very happy.
People are very evolved over there.
And there's MBSR happening. MBSR happening in a number of the
And
hospitals.
you know what you just said, at the deepest level, then love and compassion comes up. At the deepest level of pain and sorrow, love and compassion comes up. You have nowhere else to go but that. So yeah, that's what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Perry and Thomas, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you want to say something for a few minutes, and then I actually have another thing that I have to get to.
Thank you so much, Jon, for being here. Really, it has been such a special gift. Yeah, sharing your wisdom, sharing your love, your compassion with us. And what I love most is this, that you always guide us back to our own hearts. I love that. And also this clarity.
Thank you. Do me a favor, because, I don't look at the chat while something like this is happening, because I don't want to distract myself or split my attention. But it might be very interesting if you could send me the chat, if you know how to do that technically. I certainly don't, but I would love to see what people are saying when they are chatting, because, I think it's coming from a very heartfelt place, and it will help me to understand what the true map of love really is. Okay, so I'm going to take off. Goodbye to everybody, and let's actually go into gallery view for one more minute if we can, and just say goodbye. Can we unmute everybody and say goodbye that way?
Let's wait a second. So now you can unmute yourself
Goodbye, John. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank
Bye. 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 Bye.
everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, everybody.
Harry, to see you
Bye.
over
Thanks.
there.
Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Perry. Muchos
saludos. Vielen Dank.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Vielen Dank.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.